afternoon to everyone watching the Bulletin channel. Thank you once again. With me is Annerie Weber. She's the DA's Women Network, in short DAWN, provincial chairperson, provincial for Mpumalanga. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
You had a function this morning.
Yes.
It was in Mpumalanga, and it went, it's a women's thing, but it's specifically to do with the 16 days of activism.
Yes. We prefer to change the 16 days of activism to 365 days of activism because women abuse, violence against women, the brutality of the way women gets abused by being raped. It's not just a rape, it is brutally raped. It's gang rape, it's beaten, it's cut into pieces, it's the way they violently kill women, we call it femicide. So we don't believe 16 days of activism is appropriate, and it's not there to be celebrated. We have to live every day a day of awareness, everyday work on a woman living without fear. And that is what we need to get into. For every single day, women live in this fear. So every single day we have to fight this battle.
But the 16 days create a problem in itself because you said 365 days rather than 16 days. There's a lot of emphasis on the 16 days and then it sort of fades away till the government decides next year we're going to do 16 days again.
Yes. So like I said, because women daily get raped, they get daily beaten, they get daily brutalized. So it's not the 16 days of a year that we must become aware of it. It is a daily thing. It is part of our daily lives and we need to address that.
What is the DA doing? We spoke a little bit about it earlier about the policy, but there's been a policy adopted. We're not going to go into the policy yet.
Yes.
Not in this interview, but there's a policy adopted. So what are we doing about this, from the DA's point of view?
Okay, so the first thing what we say as the DA is that we have 365 days of activism where we fight this daily. But the DA wants to change the minds of people in the sense that today's meeting also was not only women, because women is not the problem. The problem is men. So in having events for women, telling women to be informed, how to protect themselves, how to dress, how to behave, how to be better.
How to handle the situation.
How to handle the situation, how not to be a victim. You are a victim, but how to cope for being a victim. Putting up places where victims can go to. But they're not the problem. The problem is men. So we want to move to meetings where, like today, there are men included. Because if men start standing up and men say this is not the way I accept it, when a man starts talking to a person and to a friend and he's aware of his friend has done something like that, like sexually harass a woman or try to rape her or whatever, molesting his child, they need to stand up. They must say this is unacceptable. They need to start calling on men doing this and tell them it's not acceptable and actually give them up to the police. Because only when men stand up, this can be addressed. Yeah. So one of the first things we say is that we need to start from a very young age with our boy children. A lot of boys grows up without a father. A lot of boys grows up currently in a house where fathers abuse the mothers or boyfriends or...
It becomes the norm because that's what they see.
Yes, that's what they see. They don't know anything else, so it's accepted. So that is the two things that we really work on. The third thing is that unfortunately we have very good policemen, but they need to be retrained. They need to be aware that when they investigate domestic violence or abuse or rape, they immediately need to act. Sometimes people wait 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
The woman can be in hospital, she can be dead, whatever. So, and during the investigation, yes, it must be immediately, it must be effective. But also, when they investigate, they need this certain format they need to follow to make sure that the investigation is done appropriately, so that when this gets to a court case, they don't sit with half the information and the court throws it out because there's not proper information. The second thing that happens is dockets disappearing. So that is something they need to work on.
Yeah.
As well as in Mpumalanga, we're fighting for special units to come back and to be specialized in that, so that women can live without fear.
Annerie, but this is not something that a normal policeman can just go in and now he's suddenly into the sexual courts and those type of things. This is something that they need to be trained for, like you just said now. When you said specialized units, it's not, and that's the fear I think sometimes of some women, is when they have to go to the police station and they have to go to the charge office instead of to a specialized unit.
You see, policemen are actually trained to work with people.
Yeah.
Whether it's a murder or not a murder, whether it's a rape or not, you should always be civil. You should always do it investigation. You always should put the person first. But what the problem here is sometimes is that a lot of men don't think this is wrong. Maybe because they do it themselves.
Maybe because they've seen it.
Maybe they're tired by the end of the day. So the retraining is how to deal with the emotional women. We actually also, they bring in more female officers that can deal specifically with a rape and with a very brutally beaten case. We need to bring women in which understand the concept better, because a woman that's been raped, I think the last thing she might want to see is a man.
It's
a man she
man,
doesn't
yeah.
know, or an intimidating man, because police officers are intimidating, whether they want to be or not.
She needs to feel safe where she's going.
Yes, she needs to feel safe. So if it is, we do find police officers that is very kind and they present that, although they can be massively big, but they need to be trained to be considerate in how to treat a woman when that is the situation. So we don't say it's only females that can do that. What we do say, if you're trained to do it, then you can do it. But a normal policeman are trained to deal with these situations. It's just a different way of looking at it. They do go through a lot of things. They see a lot of things. So we sort of need to train them to be sensitive again. But it's a once-off. You have to do investigation immediately and properly. 100%, that you don't have to come and revisit the person because you lost this or you lost that.
I've heard of cases where there's rape kits and things like that, where that was never done, and then they want to do it a few days later. It doesn't help,
Let me speak about that quickly. We have a problem in our country. There is not rape kits at our police stations. That's number one, a big problem. I do need to say this to women, that they need to understand that when they're raped, they go to the police, they open a case. They don't go home, they don't bath. They go to a hospital to either do the rape kit or do tests that they are raped. But sometimes at hospitals, the nurses ask you to go and bath, you will feel better. You cannot bath, and this is very important. You cannot bath until they have tested you and did all the tests. Otherwise, you wash away, unfortunately, you wash all evidence away. So you have to do the rape kit, or the hospital can test you and do everything they need to do. The police needs to either come there and take your statement from there, but either way that needs to be done immediately. But you cannot go home or be at the hospital and wash yourself until you are sure it has been done. But we have our Minister of Police, Shadow Minister of Police, Annerie Weber, already has called many times on the police to ensure that these rape kits, but to no avail.
Last thing I wanted to ask, COVID didn't help. The lockdown.
No, COVID didn't help. But I can tell you this, a man that beats his woman doesn't beat her less because he is sober or he's drunk. If he's at work and he gets home angry, he will beat her. A man that doesn't beat a woman can be drunk as hell and he will not beat her. He can come home and be exhausted. The last thing I want to say about this, MCA, is that we live in a society that has become a non-consequential society. And when we have people standing up, the communities, and this needs to come from society and from the communities, we need from ground level starting up and say this is now enough. Men and women together. So what we did is we started now today where we were, a group of women of 20 that was there. They started a group with whistles, and the moment they're aware of a friend being abused or whatever, not to take matters in own hands, but start blowing on the whistle, and
It's
everyone
very
hears the
effective.
whistle. They get together outside of the house and blow the whistle. Someone will phone the cops. They will come out, and it's almost like shaming this person. Because every time you do something that is abusive, the whistles will start blowing. And hopefully men will come to this party, and the more men stands up, the more example there will be for young boys and other people saying, I want to be like that.
So what we have is that it starts with us as men.
Yes.
We do not hit women, we do not beat up on women and children. We treat them kind and the way they should have been treated.
With
That's the
respect.
first part.
Yes.
And if you are drunk, you still don't do it.
Yep.
Well, it's easy, don't drink, but no, it doesn't work with everybody. And then the unfortunate part, let's repeat this. If you are a victim of rape or something like that, please do not go and bark. Go straight to either the police or the hospital and get the rape test done. It's a very uncomfortable, I would imagine, because you've just been through trauma, but that's otherwise you don't have evidence and your case falls flat.
Even if the nurses or the doctors say you can go and bath, if you haven't done the test, you can't do that. Otherwise, all evidence is gone. All right.
So there you have it. Thank you for watching us. Let us hope that this 16 days become a 365 days, and that next year we can actually sit down and say, yes, we've achieved something in this time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.